introduce the panel. My name is Jordan Hesterman, and I am the Executive Director for Becoming We the People. And we've been putting on these panel discussions for the past couple of years with the Social Justice Council here at the First Unitarian Church. They do some great work here. For those of you that are in the area, you should look them up. You don't have to be a member of the church in order to be a part of the council. You can join and be a part of what they're working on with the issues if you're interested. Or for those of you I know that you're from the University of Chicago, you guys are close, you should coordinate on events. That's my plug. So, all right, so right next to me is Mary Abeleda. And she is from the Gaia Movement. And she has been the project and program coordinator for the Gaia Movement for the past 3 years. She graduated from the University of Illinois in Chicago with a political science degree. She served in the Army National Guard for 7 years as a military police sergeant. And she is the Chicago Conservation Corps leader for the City of Chicago's Department of Environment. She currently lives in Pilsen with her dogs, Halston and Penny. Next to her we have Marissa Liebermann-Klein. She's from the Chicago Youth Climate Coalition. She's a fourth-year environmental studies and anthropology major at the University of Chicago. She's a founding member of the Chicago Youth Climate Coalition and U Chicago Climate Action Network, and has previously served as education coordinator and internal communications coordinator of UCAN. She's also interned at Greenpeace USA and was a student organizer on the campaign to shut down the Fisk and Crawford coal plants here in Chicago. She's currently writing her undergraduate thesis about oil use in factory farms and its effects on climate change. And next to her we have Jennifer Browning, and she's from the Biodiversity Project. She joined the project as the executive director in the fall of 2007. She brings to the position 15 years of experience in the field of environmental education and communications, as well as a dedication and passion for protecting the environment. In addition to the traditional executive director duties, she works directly with the Mississippi River Network, guiding this 10-state, 30-member coalition in implementing a national public education and policy campaign. Prior to joining Biodiversity Project, she worked as a consultant for organizations such as the Field Museum, National Wildlife Federation, Chicago Botanic Garden, USDA National Forest Service, and the Nature Conservancy. Jennifer holds a BS in ecology from the University of Illinois and offers a combination of expertise in the natural sciences, leadership development, and best communication practices. And last but certainly not least, down at the end is Christine Williamson from the Sierra Club of Chicago. She's been an environmental activist with the Sierra Club since 1987. She's currently the chair of Sierra Club Chicago Group, which has about 7,500 members who live throughout the city and in nearby suburbs. Christine also chairs Sierra Club's National Wildlife and Endangered Activist team and specializes in threatened and endangered species issues. Christine's passion is habitat protection, and her special concern is wildlife conservation locally, nationally, and globally. Christine is a financial journalist by profession and writes about the environment and birds and wildlife in her spare time. So I'm going to jump right into this. We're going to go right into the first question. I'll take turns with the panelists of who answers the questions first. You can just mind the questions flying down the table. And just make sure that you pass the microphone along. If we can make sure that our cups are out of the way, we can do it on the table instead of across each other's laps. We'll see how this works. Normally we have a wireless microphone, but today we're all wired. Alright, so each panelist is going to give a brief introduction of the environmental issues that they personally or their organization are working on and are researching.
So I'm the project program coordinator for Gaia Movement USA. A lot of people ask me, what does Gaia stand for? It means Mother Earth in all Greek. Basically, we collect clothes and shoes and any other items that people throw in our donation bins. You see them around the city. They're green, have the stickers on them and stuff. Basically, once the items we receive that people donate, we have a recycling facility up on 87th and Halston. So all the items we sort through. We're a staff of 12 full-time members, and we have our drivers. But basically, we're a recycling facility, and we get all these items, and we sort them, and we basically recycle them, or reuse them. Our issues that we work on is basically trying to promote clothes recycling. It's not something that we'll think about every day, or the impact that has on the environment. A cotton t-shirt takes about 200 gallons of water or more to produce and grow. Jeans take even more water, and you have to think about the impact that has on our environment. I mean, that's why most of the clothes that we wear are made in China or some other third world countries. So basically, we've collected about 6 million pounds of clothes and shoes from the waste stream this past year, 2011. This also includes, plastic, metal, glass. So basically, what we try to do is promote clothes recycling and trying to get them out of our landfills. There's no law or ordinance out there saying that clothes should be a mandatory recyclable item on plastic or paper. So people are surprised, like, you can recycle everything. So we're trying to promote that. We're trying to work with the city, trying to develop something. And then today, I found out that in Arizona, they're starting the first clothes curbside recycling program, which is, just like how you pull out curbs, put your paper, plastic, they're doing a clothes recycling program, which is great. So if Arizona can do it, I think Chicago can too. So, trying to get in the minds of that people that we need to recycle clothes is our mission. And only 15% of clothes in the world is recycled. Is recycled. Everything else goes into the waste streams. That is something that we're trying to do.
So, Chicago Youth Climate Coalition was created to combat climate change and the usage of fossil fuels in our city, our state, and our nation. To that end, we mainly work on ending the consumption of fossil fuels in any way we can and on any scale we can. And previously, we worked on the campaign to shut down Fisk and Crawford coal plants here in Chicago, and that campaign was an overwhelming success. The plants happened to close down in September, which is even earlier than the original agreement was to shut them both down. We're also currently working on a campaign to bring community aggregation to Chicago, which, not to get into technical details, basically means that the city would have the power to purchase energy for the city as a whole. And while that doesn't mean the city has to buy clean energy, we would like the city to do so and therefore convince them that that's a good idea. Most other areas that have aggregated have gone at least some sense of green, a lot of them 100%. Cincinnati 100% green this past year. And that's great. We're also hoping to prove that even though aggregation saves money to residents, it also gives Chicago the chance to set a precedent by switching to 100% renewable energy. Just like cities like Cincinnati, Chicago would be the biggest to do it if they do. And that's something we really want, because the city's already kicked out dirty energy by shutting down coal plants, which is one of the things that we're really in favor of. And now they can kind of complete the cycle by bringing in renewable energy, which is kind of a trend we'd like to see happen across the city, the country, and even the world. Getting rid of dirty fossil fuels and bringing in new, clean, renewable energy. We've also protested the Keystone XL pipeline, which would bring tar sands from Alberta to Texas oil refineries. And we're also currently working to convince Governor Quinn to veto the Leucadia coal gasification plant, which would be placed on the southeast side of Chicago, where there's already a ton of heavy industry and pollution, and it really doesn't need another dirty energy source, especially one that bills itself as clean coal. So basically, like I said, getting rid of fossil fuels, particularly in the city, but in the nation as a whole, if we can, is really our goal.
I'm definitely going to be able to tip over the water, so just give everybody a heads up there. So I'm with Biodiversity Project, and our organization is now 16 years old, and we are actually a communications and marketing organization, and our primary goal is to support the communications efforts of other environmental nonprofit organizations. We specifically focus on small to medium nonprofit organizations and coalitions. And we work with these groups in a variety of ways. One example is there's a group in Virginia. They were tree stewards and master gardeners, and they were really focusing on trying to get trying to remove English ivy from all of the trees in their community because the English ivy was choking out the trees and bringing some of these really beautiful trees down and killing them. So they had tried a whole lot of different things. Clearly they were, passionate people, very concerned about this issue. But what we did was we came in, we conduct public opinion research, so we really understand the audience and who they're trying to reach. And then we devise communications campaign and write special messages that are used, and then in that case we also train volunteers about how to approach people and how to go door to door. And they've found great success. So we do that across the country. We do it on a big scale in the whole City River Basin, and we do it on a small scale, like I said, in Arlington, Virginia.
My name is Christine Williamson. I'm the only person here, I think, who's a volunteer. You're a volunteer, Marissa?
Yeah.
Okay, so I came back from living a long time in London and came back and just decided I wanted to join the Sierra Club. And I don't even really know why. There was some mystique about our logo, which is a beautiful tree. And I really like the idea of John Muir working with Teddy Roosevelt in the 20th century, early 20th century, to actually set up the national park system. So Sierra Club is more than 1 million members strong. We're actually on a new 1 million member drive. We always get a lot more members after the election, so it's a good time to do that. But one of the things that's different about Sierra Club is that our nonprofit status is different from others. We're actually able and do a lot of election lobbying and endorsement. So right now we're in the middle of working really hard on evaluating candidates across the state, as well as congressionally. We've already endorsed President Obama for his environmental record, but it's one of the things that makes us different from other organizations. So we also are working with the Student Coalition on closing the Piskin-Crawford plants, definitely against leachate and for all of the same reasons. It's a dirty energy source and it will not be good for the environment, but we're able to do that a little bit differently. If Governor Quinn doesn't vote the right way, signing that bill or not signing that bill, can't guarantee it, but he has been a Sierra Club endorsed candidate, and that really is one of those things that's going to make us look at him twice. We have lots of politicians who are anxious to get our endorsement. Being a really big environmental group with 27,000 people in the state, we actually can't help to turn out vote, especially in places where the environment may not be a really big issue. Sometimes in some of the downstate counties and areas, fracking is starting to happen in Illinois, down in southern Illinois, in Polk County, and in Marion County, and a lot of people aren't getting the truth about the problems with fracking, unregulated fracking. So one of the things that we're doing is really closely, we sponsored a bill in the House this year that didn't make it out, it didn't pass. So those politicians who supported the bill will certainly be getting our endorsement, and those that didn't are having to have really serious talks. So it makes a really big difference. Some of the other things that we've been doing, in addition to working on Piskin-Crawford, we're working with the community groups in the area because Piskin-Crawford can be refitted, and it should be refitted. They need to be remediated and changed into something better for the community, which means good green jobs for people who would be working on the retrofit. And hopefully, whatever it ends up being used, there's a task force that's been set up by the mayor to do that. So the community is involved, environmental groups, our allies are involved, very anxious to make sure that Piskin-Crawford goes clean and provides lots of jobs. A couple of the other things that we're doing too, because we are really concerned about coal. Sierra Club has a very large Beyond Coal campaign that's been very successful in closing down coal-fired power plants. We're really supporting the US EPA's proposed rules to better control emissions for coal-fired power plants. We know that if coal stops getting subsidies and stops being a fuel of choice, it will open up competition for clean energy sources. And we've been turning out a lot of people at hearings and that sort of thing. Chicago is baseline for EPA on many of these proposals. So I'm hoping that many of the students here, it's great if you guys actually come and give testimony. The other things we do really quickly, we have a huge audience program. We send people all over the world into the wilderness, because our motto is to preserve, protect, and enjoy. So outings are a really important part of it. And we also do just lots of really fun activities to bring people who are environmentally oriented together. So if you check our websites, you'll see all the things that we do.
So the next question is, in your particular area that you're working on, what is the cause of the problem? And I'm going to go ahead and combine that with question 3, so it's going to give you a little bit longer to talk. And why do you feel that the issue is important? So I'm going to start with Marissa this time.
So as most of us probably know, global climate change is caused by the emission of greenhouse gases like carbon dioxide or methane into the atmosphere. And I'm really not here to give a science lesson. I am so not qualified for that. So if you want to know more about exactly how climate change works, I will totally leave that to the scientists. What I do want to say though is that all science aside, climate change is a problem caused by a variety of greenhouse gas emitting sources. It's caused by cars, it's caused by coal power plants, caused by oil refineries, and even our food system in a lot of ways. And carbon emissions, particularly in the US, are really not well regulated at all. And polluters are not held responsible for their emissions, not in the way they're held responsible for things like mercury emissions or sulfur dioxide or a lot of other pollutants. And as long as those polluters are able to turn a profit in exchange for ruining the planet, nothing's going to change. And while that may not be the true cause of global warming, it's definitely a major factor. In addition, climate change is not really seen as the large issue that it is by the public. It's, as exhibited by the upcoming presidential election, neither candidate is really talking about climate change or a solution to it. And in fact, there's still a debate, even though leading scientists say that climate change is happening, there are still those who believe that it's not. And it's a problem that government won't penalize the corporations, but they won't unless the public makes them. And so climate change is real and it's happening, and the public really needs to get on board with that and force the people in power to do something about it. And this is one of the reasons I really feel that youth environmental activism is so important and why I've spent so much time working with UICC, because we're not the ones that are creating the problems, but we need to be the ones that fix them. And until and unless we insist that something gets done about it, corporations are going to continue to trade short-term profits for the long-term destruction of our planet. And like I said, youth activism is really so important in this, and I guess this goes to question 3, because this is our future. Like, this is our planet. And if climate change continues to occur at the rate that it has been, there's a real likelihood that Earth won't be here within my lifetime, not as an inhabitable planet anyway. And rampant climate change means that my generation and I are not guaranteed a future, either for ourselves or for the generation that comes after us. And so, in my opinion, combating global climate change is pretty much the most important thing we can do. Because if we don't, then any other gains we make in any other sector, in any other movement, cease to matter, because there's no planet for them to happen on.
It's me again. And this is actually a really great segue into why I feel that what we do is actually so important. Folks who work in the environmental field, and this is historically true, are very passionate about what we believe and what we want to do. Unfortunately, we tend to, and I can say we because I've been doing this for 20 years, and this is me too, but because we're so passionate about it, we use a couple different communication techniques primarily. And the environmental field uses fear a lot, like the world is going to end, we have the polar bears, the whales are going to die. And we often sort of think to ourselves and think out loud to our peers that education is the answer. If only people knew, if only people understood this issue, then they would change. But what psychology research and sociology research actually shows us is that knowledge does not necessarily make adults change, and fear does not make adults change their behavior. And so, while education is extraordinarily important for students, because having that education will change our future, if we're looking for adults to take action now, we need to approach communications in a different way. And that's what we try to do. And the reason this is so true is because what we're seeing, and we've seen it happen in the past 2 years, there have been great gains in the environmental field. We have a fantastic Clean Water Act that Nixon signed into being, and it changed our water. The Clean Water Act says that our water needs to be drinkable, swimmable, and fishable. And when Nixon signed it, we were far, far away from that. 30 years later, our waters are far cleaner. So we know this sort of legislation can work. But what happens when the economy is tough and other issues come up that seem more important, we see this real backslide. And that's what's been happening in Congress over the past 2 to 3 years. We see amendment after amendment trying to impinge the ability of the Clean Water Act to restrict certain activities. And we have new activities that didn't exist when the Clean Water Act came into existence. CAFOs, or confined animal feeding operations, are one of them. They create as much pollution as a small town, yet they're not required to have the same sort of water permits. And so that's when we need to think creatively about our legislation and get people to act on it. But if we want people to take action, so if we want people to either change their behavior themselves or contact their congressperson, then we need to relate to them in a different way than we have traditionally. And that is mostly what we focus on.
Well, I'm going to focus still back on this idea of a Congress that's been dysfunctional, as Jennifer mentioned. It doesn't have to be that way. One of the things that everybody can do is really evaluate the congressman or the state legislators or the governor or the mayor or ward alderman and make the environment part of their decision making when it comes to voting and influencing candidates. And so that's one of the things that Sierra Club does 2 or 3 different things. We're really careful in how we evaluate candidates. We have really long-term relationships with many candidates. So some of our long-term environmental heroes are people like Jesse Jackson Jr., Bobby Rush, Danny Davis, Luis Gutierrez, my congressman who's new to Congress, Mike Quigley. The man is on fire. He is creating environmental coalition in Congress at a time when, as Jennifer mentioned, the Congress is so divided and so divisive that they're actually spending a lot of time trying to dismantle laws. Mike is in the middle of that right now, trying to build coalitions, because after this election, we're hopeful that as more environmental heroes are elected, people who are going to be reasonable about protecting the Clean Water Act, the Endangered Species Act, which was breached last year for the first time in the 35-year history of the Endangered Species Act. Gray wolves were delisted for reasons that were not based on the population science. And those wolves are being slaughtered in some western states right now. In Wyoming, if a wolf moves out of the designated critical habitat area, they're protected within it, but wolf packs move, right? The governor has said, you see a wolf off critical habitat, you can feel free to shoot it on sight. And this is going to decimate. It's broken a hole into the Endangered Species Act. So I'd like to urge all of you to really, Sierra Club does, and League of Conservation Voters also does a really good job of rating candidates. My husband's over there. He's the guy who always checks the judges, the one in the suit and tie over there. He's really careful about judges. I want you to be really careful about environmental candidates. And if you're not sure, go to a town hall meeting and ask about it, because that's the other thing. We're talking to a few legislators who have not made the environment one of their top priorities, and it really needs to be. As you say, so many people, it's a bad economy, we've got to focus on jobs. But as I mentioned before, there's huge potential in clean energy development and providing clean jobs. It's really, really urge you in November to, come and help us on some of the campaigns as well. For energy aggregation, the referendum that's actually on the November ballot, we need to make sure that gets through Chicago so we can work with the city to get clean energy. the way that happens is for all of us to start talking about it. So come and see me afterwards if you're interested in campaign work. There's always pizza parties too.
Mine is pretty different. I mean, recycling, but environmental ties all in together. Everybody just made a great point. Everybody can make a difference. Can start at home with recycling. I think, I've gotten involved in Lucadia and, Fisk Crawford. Our organization, Gaia, was actually a co-sponsor for the bill. I think it's very important that, if we're recycling every day, we still have a coal plant in the middle of Chicago that's unheard of, and it's always being placed in, in Pilsen and, the south side where voices aren't really heard. So I think it's really important that we do get involved, especially calling, Governor Quinn. So I don't know about that. So I think it's really important. It's like one thing we thought, hey, we shut down Fisk and Crawford. Next thing you know, you got Lucadia popping up. What's going on? So I also believe that recycling starts at home as an individual. So if you're a green thumbs, just start recycling at home if you can. And one example that surprised me is our organization just recently partnered with Waste Management. You guys know them, they're like, pick up the trash. Their recycling facility manager actually called me and was like, hey, we want to become a zero waste facility. And people actually throw like clothes and shoes in the curbside recycling. And I'm like, wait, people throw the clothes in like the green curbside, when you pull out in the driveway. And this is for all of Lake County. So, I don't know what the population is there. I need to look it up, Google it later. So we started partnering with them, and now they've actually started pulling clothes and shoes from the line that they get. It's a 30,000, 40,000 facility out in Grace Lake. And they collect about 2,000 pounds of clothes and shoes in 3 to 4 days. And this is just starting. It's ridiculous what is going on, like what is getting thrown into our landfills. So, again, this is our environment, this is our future, and education and awareness is something that, we need to push this, talk to your legislatures, our aldermen, especially our aldermen. So this is our backyard. We talk about being a green city, well, waste is still going in there that shouldn't be. And, coal plants are still getting built. They're saying that this is a clean energy. No, it's not. It's still coal. We're still mining for resources. So, these are really important issues, and I think everybody just needs to find a niche and be aware as a citizen. So we have less impact on our environment.